Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Life podcast and YouTube channel. I'm Art Burns, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. Although I will be honest with you, I'm feeling a little bit not myself today, and there's reasons for it. So let me explain. And I'm only explaining this because I hope I might come off a little bit spacey today, and there's a reason for that. Okay, I'm on a fast. All right, it's only a 24-hour fast, but I'm not used to doing these. I did one about last week, I think. I can't even remember, and I basically go from 8 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. Right, and it's just something I'm trying to do to kind of, give my body a little bit of a reset. As I said, I did it like last week, and I thought it was going to be very hard. I thought it was going to be much harder than it turned out to be, and so I was like, oh, let me try this again because I did really feel good afterward. I mean, it felt like my body like was cleaner somehow or less heavy somehow, and it just felt really good. Not that I lost a ton of weight or anything, but it just felt lighter. And so it was really very very powerfully, beneficially powerful, powerfully beneficial. And so I'm doing it again. But here's the other the other shoe dropping here is that for whatever reason last night I think I went to sleep. I fell asleep with my son at about, it was maybe about 11 o'clock or something, which is really kind of early for me to go to sleep. And I think what happened was I woke up like an hour later or something like that, and I just could not get myself back to sleep. I just was like wide awake. So I came downstairs, I read, I had some tea, I tried to, I don't think I played any music. I just tried all kinds of different things to try to get myself tired. But it wasn't until about 4 o'clock in the morning that I wound up getting to sleep. And of course, I had a meeting this morning. So yeah, so not only am I living with no food this morning, I'm also living with about 4 or 5 hours of sleep also. So yeah, it's going to be one of those days for me. So, it is what it is, right? That's what mindfulness tells us, right? That it's, this is what today has become for me, right? This is what today is for me, right? I could sit here and I could get angry about it. I could be resentful about it. I could, I could wring my hands and say it's not fair. I could bail on my fasting and I could go ahead and eat something and, I'll probably feel better for now, but later on I'll probably feel disappointed in myself, maybe shameful, right? And so I could make all these decisions to fight what is actually happening, right? Or I could simply accept that this is what it is, right? And it's not what I expected. It's not maybe what I prefer, right? And maybe my podcast today isn't going to be as, again, maybe it's not going to meet with some level of expectation, but maybe it will exceed expectations. I really don't know, right? And that's the point. That if I a lot of times when we have these expectations, the expectations actually cause us to feel the stress, right? Because we almost never are going to completely live up to what, any situation is almost never going to completely live up to our expectations of it, right? And so the minute that we don't have the minute the expectations are not met, or the minute we realize the expectations are not going to be met, we feel like we need to control it, right? We feel like we need to, force it into submission somehow, right? And this, of course, is the stress, right? That's based on this fear of anything that's outside of my expectation is going to be bad, and therefore I got to fight it, and I got to survive this, right? I got to literally I try to live through this difficult problem, right? And so that's where the stress comes from. Right. So it's really just imperative at moments whenever you feel like you're kind of as soon as you notice an expectation, it's important to let it go. Right. Because that's where we can make the choice. Getting back to what I was saying again. Sorry, my neurons are not firing the same way they usually do today. But, we could make all those choices to get into that hard and forceful and controlling and clingy place, right? Or we could choose to relinquish and let go of the expectations and just allow life to be exactly what life is, right? Because there's nothing wrong right now, right? I'm just a little tired. I have food if I need it. Like if I'm like literally gonna pass out and like die from not eating, I can go and eat. Although I know that I'm not gonna die. I mean, I know for a fact that people have been on hunger strikes for, what did Gandhi do? Like 75 days, I think. I think the longest is like over 150 days. So I'm going to be okay, right? It's just a question of personal comfort, right? And so my comfort is nothing more than a judgment, right? Like, like I get to, it's the choice of saying this is comfortable or that is not comfortable, right? It is what it is, right? It is what it is. And I can choose to be uncomfortable. I can choose to just simply, again, the place where it becomes uncomfortable is when I measure it against the expectation of feeling comfortable, right? Whatever that feeling of comfort is for me, right? The fact that I expect to have that is the judgment, right? Or that is what's creating the discomfort, right? Because it's only because I'm measuring it against that thing that now it's not meeting up for it, so now it must be bad. But that's not true, right? That is not the way it works, right? And I could instead, again, I could relinquish my sense of needing to control it. I can let go of this expectation that I have, and I can just kind of see what happens. I can see what arises in the present moment, right? Because that's another lesson here, right? Is that a lot of times I might be looking like, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this? I've been meeting at 5:00 this afternoon. How am I going to get all the way to there? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? How am I going to deal with that? Well, the fact of the matter is that it's not a thing yet, right? It's not a thing until 5:00. And so who knows what's going to happen between now and then? Maybe I'll have time for a nap. Maybe I'll be able to, drink a little extra tea with some caffeine. Maybe I'll get a second wind. Maybe I'll go outside for a walk and the fresh air will invigorate me. Maybe I'll just not feel great and just do the call anyway, right? But the point is that the more I think about that, the more I become tense in this present moment, right? And right now, well, at any time, this present moment is all there really is, right? That meeting at 5:00 does not exist yet, right? And there's plenty of ways in which a potential could unfold in which the meeting doesn't happen, right? The client could call me and say she can't make it tonight. I could call her and say I can't make it tonight. My house could go on fire. I mean, I hope that doesn't happen, knock wood. Many, many different things can happen in between now and 5:00 that could make that potential meeting not a potential anymore. Right. So literally all it is a potential. And so therefore, every minute that I spend, every second that I spend worrying about that meeting at 5:00 that might or might not even happen, like this potential, the more that I'm dwelling on that at 5:00, the less I am attending to this present moment. And therefore, the less I'm going to be effective, the less I'm going to be present, the less I'm going to be able to see what's really happening, and the less I'm going to be able to be comfortable even in this place of, a little headache, a little tired, a little, but I can accept it, right? Because if I dwell in this present moment, if I'm out there at 5:00, I got no chance, and I'm just going to be thrown around like going body surfing when the wave just wipes you out, and you just you don't even know which way's up. That's the way we get sometimes, and so that kind of segues into today's topic, which is really handy, isn't it? So today I wanted to talk about breathing. Right now, I know breathing is a funny thing that we do, right? And when I say funny, I mean interesting, right? Because breathing is one of those things which is it's two things at the same time, right? It's something that we can intentionally do, right? I can say to you right now, take a deep breath, right? And you could go, you just made that happen, right? But right now, if I'm just talking, you're just listening to me, you didn't stop breathing. You're breathing right now, right? Now, there's a few things that are like this. Eye blinking, right? If I ask you to blink your eye right now, you can certainly make your eyes blink, but yet you cannot stop your eyes from blinking, a few thousand times today, right? a lot of different things are that way, right? A few things are that way, right? But breathing, the reason I bring that up is because, there is an automatic kind of quality to breathing, but again, there's also an intentional quality to breathing, right? And there are different ways in which our body breathes based on the circumstances that we're experiencing. Okay. And so the circumstances that we're experiencing, for instance, if we're afraid of something, right, and we're entering into the stress response of our body, well, then our breathing is going to take on a certain form, a certain aspect of its process, right? And that form and that aspect is going to have a very specific reason and a very specific purpose, right? And that reason and purpose is to get as much oxygen into our bodies as we possibly can. Okay. The reason for this is because every time we breathe in oxygen, what we're doing is we're giving our heart, through our lungs into our heart, we're allowing our heart to oxygenate, or I guess we're oxygenating the blood in our lungs and then sending that oxygen-rich blood into our heart, which is giving it power to then send the blood out to the extremities of our body, the arms, the legs, the back muscles, because we're going into fight or flight mode, right? And that's the whole way that the stress response works, right? So when we're in that place of stress, right, you can just think, like, if you're being chased by an animal, right, you're not going to be, you're going to be breathing with your chest. You're going to be pounding and heaving with your chest because you're, again, trying to, get energy, get out of here, right? Get that oxygen into your body so you can run faster and survive this threat, right? That's what the stress response is, right? Now, when people are in chronic stress, right, which is, certainly for people like me who have experienced complex post-traumatic stress disorder, right? The S in PTSD is always about stress, right? And so people like me who have experienced CPTSD, especially from childhood trauma, right? We've developed a habit of stress, right? Because we've spent so much time in that place of stress. A lot of the normal things, the quote unquote normal things that we do every day, are in response to that stress. Okay. One of those things is breathing. Because remember, when we're breathing, so when we're, again, no sleep, no food, caffeine. Let me take another sip. So let's talk about how the breath works, okay? Because this is really interesting and really important to understand. So, I grew up thinking that the lungs were like these muscles, right? And they just, when I do that, I'm actually making my lungs puff out, right? But that's not the case, right? Your lungs are not muscles. Your lungs are basically like very fancy balloons, right? They're like balloons with like a organic machine inside of them, right? But they do not inflate and deflate on their own, right? That happens through the exchange of air pressure. Okay, let me explain how that works. If you picture your rib cage, right, underneath your rib cage, there is a thin, like a very thin membrane, like a muscular membrane, right? This is called the diaphragm. It's a certain kind of diaphragm because you have one down here and you have one up here too. I don't remember what they're both called, but they're the diaphragm, right? So the diaphragm, what it does is it seals and separates the chest cavity from the gut, right? So that chest cavity, again, there's a diaphragm at the top of your ribs and a diaphragm at the bottom of your ribs, right? Because that cavity requires an air pressure in order for your lungs to work. Okay, so now let me explain how it happens. When we take a breath in, right, the way our body is supposed to work, when we take a breath in, our abdomen will extend outward, right? And as the abdomen extends outward, the diaphragm then lowers, right? So when I do this with my belly, my diaphragm then, what's happening here is you're creating like a vacuum effect, right? And it's pulling the diaphragm down, right? As the diaphragm pulls down, right, you have opened up your chest cavity, right? Which allows so you've lowered the pressure in your chest cavity, right? So now the pressure outside the chest cavity is greater, and therefore the air comes in and fills up your lungs, right? And then when you exhale, you push your abdomen back down. That pushes the diaphragm up, squeezing that space in your chest cavity and pushing the air back out of your lungs, okay? That's how breathing works, or at least that's how it's supposed to work. Now, again, when we're in stress, right, we're going to be breathing up here because we're trying to make it happen really quickly, right? Now, we sacrifice something there, right? Because we don't get air down into the very bottoms of our lungs, right, in that way. But that's not important to our body, right? Because the air from the bottoms of your lungs, most of that oxygen is going to go to your brain, right? But in that moment of stress response, your brain is not a big player, ironically, right? It's not, though. The big players are the muscles in your back, your legs, and your arms, because that is what's going to help you survive this threat so that your brain makes any kind of difference, right? So literally you're sacrificing your brain to a certain extent when you're in the stress response, ironically as that is, right? So when we're in the stress response, again, we're going to be breathing with the chest, right? So we're using our chest muscles to create that space in our chest to let the air come in, right? Instead of opening up with the diaphragm, we're just doing it here, right? And it's just sucking the air in as fast as we can, right? Little gas. Now, ultimately, the end result of this trajectory becomes hyperventilation, right? Like when you literally go into a place where you're throwing your body into mayhem because you got too much oxygen coming in too quickly, right? And it's overwhelming the system. And eventually your body's just going to make you pass out, right? Like that's what's going to happen, right? Because it's a safety precaution, right? You're either going to have a heart attack or we're going to pass you out. So we're going to pass you out and we're going to reclaim this, we're going to take the breathing away from you and we're going to make you pass out so that the body can regulate the breathing back to what it's supposed to be. Okay, that's how it works, right? Which is fascinating. But here's why it matters to what we talk about here, right? Again, somebody who's experienced CPTSD, right, or PTSD, same, right, or just chronic stress, right, just from, anxiety or life circumstances, what have you, right? When we're in this chronic state, right, that means that we're often breathing with our chest, right? We're doing that all the time, right? Because we're chronically in that place of stress. And so that becomes our new normal way of breathing, right? Maybe it's not even new to you, right? For me, it was very, very old, right? So that means that when you're just sitting at your desk and there's nothing wrong at all, right? Because of your habit, you're likely to be breathing from your chest. Right now, again, there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, you're not getting as much oxygen into your brain as you could be, which is not good. That's definitely holding you back from some cognitive functioning and some ability of reasoning and just the whole thing, right? Like you want your brain to have as much power as it can, right? So you're depleting that a little bit in that way, right? But the other important thing that you're doing, the other very impactful thing that you're doing, is by breathing with your chest, your brain notices that you're breathing with your chest, right? Specifically the amygdala and all kinds of players in the limbic area, realize that you're breathing with your chest. But as soon as the amygdala realizes it, the amygdala says, "Hold on a second. We breathe from our chest when we're worried about something. What are we worried about right now?" But there you are just sitting at your desk, right? There's nothing wrong. But your amygdala and your brain is picking up something is wrong, even though it's not, right? And so, because the brain doesn't know the difference between just a thought that arises, right? Or this sensing thing that's coming from your chest, right? It thinks it's really under attack. Right? And the only way it knows how to protect you, the only way it knows how to respond to an attack is through the stress response, right? So by breathing the way that you do in the stress response, what you're doing is you're inviting the stress response to show up. You're pushing your body into that stress response, right? And then it just becomes a vicious cycle, because as the stress response, as you rage in that stress response, of course, the thoughts are going to be very, catastrophic and all negative and all scary, right? And that's just going to cause more stress, right? And so you can see how this unfolds to become a truly vicious cycle, right? So why am I bringing this up, right? It's because most of us are breathing wrong. That's why. Remember how I said the way the diaphragm works, right? It depends on the abdomen to breathe, right? So the way to breathe is by using the belly, the abdominal muscles to pull that air into the lungs, right? But again, most of us are here, right? So we're again, not only are we not, really giving ourselves the oxygen we need, but we're also creating more stress by breathing this way. Okay. So this is something you can practice anytime, anywhere, right? It does not require meditation. It does not require any specific formal practice at all. Just sitting, even as you're listening to me right now, are you breathing with your chest or are you breathing with your belly? Just notice right now. I'll pause. I'll stop talking for a moment and tell me, or tell yourself, where you're breathing from right now. Now, for many of you, the answer would have been, wow, yeah, my chest. That's crazy. I had no idea. I don't like to use that word crazy. I'm sorry, but that's really surprising. I had no idea that I was breathing through my chest that way. Okay, now that's the first step. Now, the second step is just noticing it more often. And every time you notice it, just bring your awareness down into your abdomen and just start using your abdomen to breathe. It's that easy. It really is. And I guarantee you that if you continue to do that, like every day, right? Like all the time while you're sitting at your desk, just check in with yourself. Where am I breathing from, right? It's going to reward you, right? It's going to feel good because like, oh yeah, I'm managing my body, and that's cool, right? I'm also feeling a little bit better because I'm getting more oxygen into my brain, right? So this is going to be a positive thing. And those two things together are going to create a habit, right? They're going to help to create the habit of breathing with your abdomen. Okay? And so that means that you're going to move your body away from stress, because the same way that your brain recognizes that, oh crap, what's wrong here? She's breathing with her chest again. There's something wrong here. What's wrong? I got to pull all the fire alarms, set everything in motion here, right? The same way that process happens, it happens the other way too, right? Your brain recognizes, okay, we're breathing with our abdomen. We're taking long, deeper breaths. It doesn't feel like anything's wrong right now. So, okay, I'm going to back off a little bit, right? I'm not going to pull the fire alarms. I'm not going to try to make, this I'm not going to create this havoc here in my body, because it doesn't seem appropriate. Okay, so you're actually pushing yourself away from the stress response. Okay, this is very, very important. Now, of course, you can also use this breathing when you're in meditation, and I recommend you do. And I'm going to share something from Jon Kabat-Zinn with this. Pardon me. And this is something I tell to just about everybody I ever teach meditation to, right? Which is that, so if you picture the ocean, right? The ocean, at the surface of the ocean, right? There's wind, there's other boats that are driving through, there's sea life, right? That's creating disruption, right? The currents are going to create a certain thing that happens on the surface of the sea. My point is, or, it could be all of, at any given point, all of these factors could produce, seas that are 50 feet waves, right? In the most dangerous place on earth, right? Or at other times, the sea could be completely still as glass, right? That's what it looks like at the ocean at any given time, at any given point in the ocean, right? It varies like that all the time from all these different factors, right? But if you go down under the surface, about 30, 40, 50 feet under the surface, none of those factors are affecting us anymore if we're down that deep. Deep 40 feet under the surface of the ocean is just a steady, undulating, quiet, gentle current that's happening, right? It's peaceful. It's easy. The top could be like a hurricane, but down there, easy as pie, right? And so the same relationship could be between our head and our gut, right? Our abdomen. As we walk through life, so many things can affect our mind, our brain and our mind and our nervous system, and just, create all this havoc, right? Like we can be overthinking things. We could be overreacting to things. We could be, sensing things in our environment, our amygdala, freaking out on us, right? Or we could be in moments of complete stillness and quiet, right? Like, wow, where'd this come from? What happened, right? All of a sudden I feel so present and in the flow, right? We all experience it from time to time, right? And so in any given moment, it might be complete mayhem or it might be completely placid, right? But if we go down to our abdomen, right, there's none of those factors impact our abdomen. In our abdomen, there's just this gentle rise and gentle fall with each in-breath and each out-breath. So you picture like a whale just floating there in the gentle current, right? And so this is what I always tell people, that when we're paying attention to our breath, if we can draw our attention down into our abdomen to pay attention to our breath, it's very effective that way. It calms our nervous system. It gives us that sense of grounding and that stability. It brings us back into our power, our core. There's lots of good benefits, and it will help to train you to not only know when you're not belly breathing sitting at your desk, but also to encourage you to belly breathe when you're at your desk. All right, folks. Now, there are also lots of ways in which you can calm your nervous system. I'm going to give you one last tip here before I pass out. I mean, before I got to end this call. But so there's, mindfulness is just being aware of the breath. It's not a relaxation technique, okay? But there is a way that you can abdominally breathe to help yourself relax your nervous system, okay? Just do the following thing that I'm going to say 4 times, okay? What you want to do first, always make sure that you're using your abdomen to draw the breath in, okay? That's key. If you don't do that, it's not going to work, okay? Draw the breath in with your abdomen through your nose, count to 4, okay? Now hold it while you count to 5. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, using your abdomen to push your air out of your mouth and count to 7. Okay, so that your exhale is going to be longer than the inhale. Okay, the reason why this works is because it's stimulating the vagus nerve, and it's helping to promote the parasympathetic nervous system through the vagal stimulation, right? It's a little more complex than that, but that's all that you need to know right now about it, right? So by as long as that out breath is longer than the in breath, you're going to start to regulate your nervous system, right? So that's why we count 4, hold 5, push out 7. Now the other thing that really helps, and this is also going to work with the vagus nerve, is to press, like give some resistance to your breath out, and also give it a tone, right? So you go, that kind of thing, right? Or even like a, that kind of thing, right? So again, in 4, in through the nose, using the abdomen, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold for 5, around a 5 count, right? And then out through the mouth, right? Do that 4 times. Your nervous system will start to calm down. I promise you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Wish you well. I'll be back in tomorrow, hopefully with better sleep and a full belly, because I'll get to eat dinner tonight. So I'll see you then. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.